Hello and welcome to Movie Recap. Today I am going to recap Thai mystery thriller film Deep. The film starts, and we are shown a building on which a boy was standing, and his condition was the worst. It seemed that he would fall while getting faint, but as he was about to fall, the scene cuts. Afterward, we are shown a Professor Nietzsche giving a lecture to her students about insomnia, which is a disease in which a person cannot sleep at night. The professor says, "I also had this disease and I also could not sleep properly." Meanwhile, a girl named Jane tells the professor that sometimes she does not sleep straight for 3 days. Jane's parents have died, and she lives with her younger sister and grandmother. At home, she used to study till late at night, and she also had a small restaurant for which she used to start cooking food from 4 o'clock. One night, her sister does not come home, and when her sister June comes back to the house in the morning, Jane is very angry at her. She asks her why she was out of the house till late at night and where she had come from. Her sister ignores her and goes inside. Later, Jane receives a letter from the bank, stating that she will have to pay her loan as soon as possible. Jane gets upset and thinks about how she will do all this so soon. She had to leave her studies and get a job, so she goes to talk to her professor about this. The Nietzsche says, "Jane, I think students like you should not leave studies because you're very good in studies. You can start your OnlyFans account, you can do a part-time job, but still, you can't pay the loan with that money." Then she gives a German lab card to Jane and says, "This company is doing research on patients who have insomnia. You go there, they will experiment on you, and in return, they will give you a lot of money." Jane hears the professor and goes to the lab. After being accepted, she joins the company and watches an informative video about the research. It appears that the scientists aim to collect creatinine, a substance released from the thalamus that keeps us awake. This creatinine could potentially treat brain-dead patients, but it is only released when a person is awake. So, Jane needs to stay awake for a couple of days to avoid sleeping. The process of collecting creatinine is called Deep and has 3 levels. Those in higher levels must stay awake for longer durations but receive more money as compensation. After this video ends, a doctor comes there named Hans Miller and answers Jane's questions. He tells her that this hormone is found in insomnia patients who do not sleep, that's why she can also be a part of this project. Jane asks the doctor, "How much money will I get in return for this?" He says, "If you complete 1 level, you will get $100,000. Jane agreed as she hears about the money. The doctor now injects a microchip behind her neck and says, "This chip will keep collecting creatinine hormones from your brain until you are awake. And when this chip is completely filled, your first level will be completed." He ties a watch on her hand and says, "This watch will keep telling how much hormone is stored in your chip, and do not remove this watch until it reaches 100%. The last thing the doctor tells is that if you sleep by mistake, the alarm of your watch will start ringing, and you will have to wake within 60 seconds, otherwise, your heart will stop, and you will die. And this is our secret project, so you will not tell anyone about it." On the first day, Jane does not sleep and studies late at night. At that time, the level of hormones had increased by 39%. Now comes the second day. Jane was eating lunch at her college canteen when a boy comes and sits next to her. He looks at the watch on her hand and asks, "Are you in the Deep project?" Jane hid her hand, and the boy says, "Don't be afraid, I am also in the Deep project." It is shown here his name was Win, who was often busy at parties and was very popular at college. Then he points to a girl there and says, "Look at her, her name is Sin, she is a YouTuber, influencer." Then she sits beside her. Now another boy comes who was Win's friend named Peach. He is a gamer who did not get tired of playing games all night. Then all 4 introduce themselves to Jane and tell her that they also have insomnia, and they're also in the Deep project. Then Peach says, "Guys, don't you think there is a huge risk? If we fall asleep, we will die." Jane says insomnia patients like us can't sleep. Meanwhile, everybody continues with their regular lives. Sin starts live streaming, Jane helps at home, Win parties, and Peach plays video games. Barely a day passes, and all of their watches are at 100%, so they visit the company to get their chips removed. After completing the first level, they go to the doctor and take their money. They had seen so much money for the first time and they don't understand what to do with this money. Peach buys a gaming gadget, Sin gets an expensive facial treatment, while Win had bought an expensive watch. Jane had paid some of her bank loans, and she also sees an expensive phone, so she buys it. They were happy after fulfilling their needs. Later at mall, Jane asks everyone, "If we are called for the second level, will you go?" They say yes, we will definitely go. They become greedy seeing so much money, and their needs were also increasing. Afterward, Jane leaves. When Peach and Sin go home together, here we come to know that Peach has a crush on Sin, and Peach is extremely shy and barely speaks to Sin. Sin tells Peach that maybe someone is stalking her, and Peach awkwardly tells her to watch out because there are a lot of psychos out there, and he cares about her. Sin notices he likes her, so she pokes fun at him before leaving in a cab. Jane came to her house and gave her sister a new phone. Her sister is happy and asks, "Where did you get so much money from?" On it, Jane tells her, "What does it matter to you? You just pay attention to your studies." The next day, all four of them had reached the lab and asked the doctor about the second level. The doctor tells them that the second level is going to be a little difficult. They will not have to sleep for more than 5 days. Now Jane asks, "How much money will you give us?" To which he replies, $5 million. Hearing this, all of them get excited, and they accept this challenge happily. On the third day, all four of them are in a worse condition due to not sleeping during the second level. Even after 3 days, their hormone levels are very low. At home, Jane's condition is also worse, and when her sister plays the guitar, she gets angry and asks her to leave. Jane's sister expresses concern over her changed behavior since earning money, not realizing it's because of the sleep deprivation. In the next scene, when they sit together, they talk about each other's progress and why after so many days their hormones levels are low. Only Win has a high hormone level. Then Jane noticed that Win used to play basketball and work out, so that's why his hormones levels are so high. And Jane suggests them keeping their bodies active like they are waking their minds up, so they decide to party all night, which will increase his Thea level. All four of them have a lot of fun, doing parties and enjoying themselves. Win shows them a substance that doesn't make them sleepy, which he stole from the lab. They all take it with their drinks to stay awake. However, the substance starts to have unusual effects on Jane, making her behave like a zombie and dance uncontrollably. While dancing she kisses Win, and now Win falls in love and wants to clap her. On the other side, Sin goes to Peach's room, where she hears her own voice from her videos playing on the computer screen. She realizes that he's the one stalking her, and she thought he's a psycho lover. She gets panic attack and falls unconscious, and her alarm starts ringing. When they rush to the room and find Sin not breathing, Jane performs CPR, and before the time's up she starts breathing again. They realize their hormone levels have reached 100%, completing the second level. In this state, they go to the doctor to ask for their money. The doctor is impressed that they passed the second level, which no one else has done before. He offers them to continue to the third level, but they decline, asking for their money, and they leave from there saying we don't want to die. The next morning, they are shown sleeping like they never sleep before. Later at college, Jane's professor tells Jane that she scored low on her test, advising her not to ruin her studies for the sake of earning money. Peach apologizes to Sin, confessing that he did all this because he loved her. Sin warns him not to follow her again, or she will tell the police that you beat your meat on my pick. On that day, Win comes to Jane and asks her to go to the concert with him, but she refuses because she wants to focus on her studies. Later, Jane witnesses a girl's death at college. The girl was wearing a watch on her hand, indicating that she was also a part of the DEEP project but died due to sleep deprivation. Another day, Jane's grandmother has a heart attack and is taken to the hospital, but there's no money for her treatment as Jane had paid it all to the bank. Her sister brings the money. Jane asks her sister where she got the money, and her sister reveals that she earned it just like Jane did. Jane notices a chip injected into her sister's neck. In rage, she asks, "Why did you participate in that experiment?" June says you're the not only one who can earn money, and leaves from there. Afterwards Jane goes back to home and notices her sister is not there, so worried about her sister, Jane goes to the lab where the doctor had inserted a third-level chip behind her sister's neck. Jane asks doctor to remove the chip, otherwise she will call the police. Doctor says you cannot because you signed an agreement. Even though June complete third level, I will not remove the chip from June. But I will remove the chip if Jane and her friend agrees for third level experiment. Jane discusses the situation with her friends, and Win agrees, but Sin and Peach refuse, not wanting to put their lives in danger. Jane tries to convince them, but they ignore her and leaves from there. The next day, Jane, June, and Win arrive at the lab to face the third level. Later Sin and Peach also joins them, saying friends always help their friends. All four of them start level 3 together, but Jane has a plan. After they get chipped, they goes to their college professor, who knows about the DEEP experiment. The professor gives them a place to stay in the lab until they pass the 3rd level. They are given injections to stay awake. The days pass, and after 6 days of continuous wakefulness, Peach starts experiencing hallucinations and hears strange voices. Sin notices pimples on her face, and as she tries to wash her face, Win experiences a vision of his deceased mother calling him. While Sin breaks the mirror and gets a cut on her face, feeling sad and angry, she confronts Jane, blaming herself for endangering her life to help Jane's sister. Peach also supports her, but Win tries to calm them down. On that, Peach says to Win, "You wants to clap Jane, that's why you're helping her sister." Enraged, Win start beating Peach. Jane attempts to call the professor urgently, but she doesn't respond. So she goes upstairs to find her, but when she arrives there she discovers numerous screens and cameras spying on them, which surprises her since the professor is behind this surveillance. Jane also sees a picture of the doctor who had inserted the chips in their necks. It turns out that she's the one who started this experiment and she lied to them. Realizing the professor's reality, Jane warns her friends that they are being used. As they try to call the police, but there is no signal. Evil professor locks the door from outside. Then they hear the professor's voice saying that they can go home after their hormones level reached 100%. Sin destroys the cameras, but suddenly Win faints. Even though everyone tried to save him, unfortunately Win dies when his time's up. The professor takes Win out of the lab and removes his chip, but suddenly Win attacks Professor, revealing that they destroy camera on purpose so Win can take CCL injection, which causes temporary death. Afterwards Jane asks, "Why are you doing this horrible experiment?" Then Professor reveals a patient in a coma, and he was the same boy seen at the beginning of the story who jumped from the rooftop. He was a medical student who got bad hallucinations because he was experimenting with sleep deprivation. Nietzsche was his girlfriend and has been trying to revive him with creatinine ever since. She explains to the students that she cares about them and that she never meant to harm them. Nietzsche has also been harvesting creatinine from her own body, so she shows her neck wounds to the students. But nobody believes in her, so Nietzsche pick up her injection and inject Jane with Valium. She falls unconscious and her timer started. While Peach and Sin fight the professor who's trying to stick the needle in them as well. Win tries to give Jane CPR, but still she doesn't wake up and unfortunately her timer runs out, indicating she died. Peach is about to be injected as well, but Sin stops the professor by bashes the professor's head with a keyboard. June was crying and hit on her chest. Suddenly, Jane wakes up and everybody is relieved. After removing Chip, they continue their regular lives once again. Win and Jane start dating, Sin becomes more famous, and Peach quit gaming so he can live in the real world with his friends. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on the notification, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thanks for watching.